Coming. How are you doing today, JR?
Pretty good. Just juggling a few things with this meeting, or just yeah. I'm gonna be listening. I'll probably turn off my camera, but I'm here.
Awesome. No, we totally understand. Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
Ireland, yes, Ireland, thank you for joining us as well. Feel free to, make this space your own. You can have your camera on, you can have your camera off, whatever you feel comfortable with. We're going to hear from some really great young minds here today. And so welcome everyone. My name is Aubrey-Anne Laliberte-Pewapisconias. I am the former National Student Director with Cando, for which Nathan is the current director in that role now. I'm just filling in. Usually Nathan is in this MC role, but he actually gets to be one of the panelists today. So that's kind of fun. We get to switch roles and go back in time a little bit. So that's always nice for us to be able to, go and see that. I'm joining you all from Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where I currently reside. But I am from Canoe Lake Cree First Nation on Treaty 10 territory. I'm stoked to be joining you all for the Cando Youth Connect. I remember when this program was something that we just, kind of talked about in meetings, and then it's come to life as an opportunity to, amplify youth voices and bring youth together to learn from one another. And so today we are joined by some incredible youth. You may have seen their pictures before from our youth panel at the National Cando Conference this year, for which they absolutely crushed that panel. I left it feeling so incredibly inspired. I felt like a proud auntie at that event. And I still rave about it to my partner and my friends and my business colleagues to this day, because, the standing ovation at the end just really showed how much you truly impacted the lives of all of the people in attendance. And so with us today, we don't have the full youth panel with us, but we have a good portion of them. We have with us Mackenzie Brown, Shayla Raine, Nathan Crow, and Josh Montana. So welcome all four of you. I'm so happy to be sharing this space with you all again. I can't wait for us to reconnect in person one day too. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with the Cando Youth Connect, it's here to empower youth ages 18 to 35 across Turtle Island to talk about economic development, lands management, entrepreneurship, and just overall amplify youth voices in the spaces within our communities. And so as a result, we want youth to be more powerful catalysts for positive change and contribute to innovative solutions to current challenges in their communities. So this can be as interactive as you want, or if you're just here to listen, make this space yours. Every Youth Connect's a little bit different, and that's the beauty of it, is that we get to change and adjust and go with that flow. And so I'm so excited for this. So we're going to kind of start with some introductions from our panelists and also from our attendees, if you feel comfortable too. But I'll start off with our panelists. And for me, I like to, let others introduce themselves as much as I can. And I also always like to start with our women. And so with this, we'll start with Mackenzie and then go to Shayla. And then we'll move over to Nathan and Josh. So Mackenzie.
Thank you so much for such a lovely welcome. Thank you, Aubrey. Happy Friday, everyone. Mio gisagaw sa tansay no totamak kamamak Mackenzie Brown at sigasan nimiwi sa kahiganek oshinia mohkinstis otoskonek migwachni weekend. My name is Mackenzie, and I hail from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, Treaty 8 territory, but I make my home here as a visitor on Treaty 7 territory in Métis Region 3 in Calgary, known as Mohkinsis to the Blackfoot, Otoskonek to the Cree. And yeah, I'm very excited about today. A little bit about myself. I'm a drummer, singer, performer, artist, tourism advocate. I work for Indigenous Tourism Alberta. That's my day job. And then I have many side hustles as well. And then I also say that I'm an advocate for fun and an advocate for youth as well. So I'm so excited to be here today. I'm excited to, chat with everybody, to make connections and to share space again with my beautiful and lovely youth colleagues. So I'm excited to see everybody again. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Can definitely attest to the fun that you bring into different spaces. So welcome back. And Shayla?
Thank you so much, Aubrey and Elsie, for inviting me to this July Youth Connect. I know that Elsie's email was getting lost in my spam for a long time, so I'm just glad that she was still persistent with it. So when I did check my spam, it was at the top, and I'm glad I was able to get on this last minute. And just thank you so much for this opportunity. But Tansi, everyone, my name is Shayla Raine. I'm joining you guys today from the unceded Syilx territory in the Okanagan, British Columbia, but I am from Musqueam, Alberta, which is located in Treaty 6. A little bit about myself. I'm an independent author. I'm a third-year human kinetics student at the University of British Columbia, Okanagan. And right now, I'm just working as a summer student as a healthy activities coordinator with OKIB, Okanagan Indian Band, where I live. And yeah, and I'm excited for the school year to start. And I'm also working on finishing up my book. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. And thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited. It's good to see some familiar faces today.
Welcome back, Shayla. Definitely, I can't wait to read your book when it comes out. I'm going to be one of the first ones buying it, I swear. And with that, we'll move over to Nathan.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm just gonna basically mimic what my fellow panelists said. Just really happy that that I'm here today and excited to sit on the panel again with so many amazing youth that are doing so many great things. But I'm just gonna kind of begin by introducing myself in my traditional language, which is Blackfoot, something I really tried to push myself to do. So Oki Idamik Skanatoni Nidaniko or Nistun Nidaniko Bunikyayo. What I just said was hello, good morning, everyone. My Blackfoot name is Elk Bear. My English name is Nathan Crow. So I'm a proud Blackfoot and member of the Cando First Nation, which is also known as the Blood Tribe. And today I'm speaking to you today from Treaty 7 territory, located on the traditional lands of the Siksikaid Sitabi, also known as the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is where I was raised and currently live and go to school. I'll just tell you kind of a bit about myself. So I'm a full-time student at the University of Lethbridge in the Bachelor of Management program, majoring in Indigenous governance and business management. And I'm also employed by my university in a couple different areas. So I'm the Indigenous student representative on the Student Union Council, as well as a student mentor with student enrollment and registrar services. And I was actually also working as a student assistant in the library up until this past December of this past year. But I decided to take a break from that just because I had other commitments that I took on. And that was actually this role as Aubrey mentioned, the National Student Director with Cando. And then a couple of months before that, I joined the Community Futures Treaty 7 Student Advisory Committee. And I always strive to do the best in anything that I do or take on. And I really place a high importance on succeeding in my studies, which is why I believe I have managed to excel at the top of my program and actually make the Dean's Honor List every semester, except for one, and which was in this past semester, not this past semester, but the semester fall 2021. And that was actually when I realized I needed to take a step back and, reprioritize my commitments. But I can proudly say that I successfully made the Dean's Honor List this past semester. So yeah, just something I wanted to share, I guess, with everyone. But thanks for listening to my introduction. Really happy for today and excited.
Nathan, you're so deadly. I love chatting with you. You're always doing something new every new time I talk with you. Out of me. And with that, we'll hand it over to Josh.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to reconnect with everybody here. I've been keeping up with everybody throughout Facebook. Everybody's kind of newsline, so good job to everybody. I see everybody kind of striving throughout social media and kind of having a good summer and just making sure you're taking time for yourselves as well. My name's Josh Montana. I'm coming to you from Treaty 4 territory. I'm in Regina, Saskatchewan this week. I'm from the George Gordon First Nation. I had a really good experience, great experience with Cando this past year, being a national youth panelist up with so many other great people. I'm an athlete. I'm a new father. I'm a husband. So I've just kind of been getting into the swing of things here, and this has kind of been my first week back. It's been a big year for me and kind of a lot of changes. Alongside that, I made the Canadian national team this year. We're actually supposed to be in Venezuela next week playing ball, but that got canceled kind of due to travel and health concerns out there. So we're going to the World Games in Argentina in October. But alongside that, I am the Vice President of Stewardship and Relations for Wichita Limnos Consulting Services, which is an environmental consulting firm mainly in oil and gas. Just ensuring that Indigenous stewardship obligations are being met and Indigenous rights and kind of activists and concerns are being at the table when oil and gas projects are coming through our unceded traditional territories. So just ensuring that Indigenous people are at the table and we're kind of getting our fair share and our word is being heard at the table. So I'm excited to be here today, and I'm excited to be here with some of our panelists. Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome back, Josh, and many congratulations for all that's going on in your life. So cool to see all that you're doing as well. And so I do just want to take a second here to acknowledge, now that we've kind of met our panelists, acknowledge kind of what helps bring us together. And it's, important to recognize our community. And, the Cando Youth Connect is made possible through the generous support of CIBC, Farm Credit Canada, Kiera Resources, and Cooperatives First. And so a big thank you to them for being supporters of Cando and, letting us hold this space and supporting this initiative. And so with that, I also just want to, open the floor to our attendees, JR in Ireland. If you want to say your name and where you're joining from, or if not, that's totally okay. But I'll leave a few seconds here to see if you would like to.
Hey there. I guess I'll go first. It's working on my camera. My name's JR Manyfingers. Nista Nadanako Abamit that's my Blackfoot name. Rocks across the river, given to me by my grandpa Frank Manyfingers. I'm coming from Six Gates of the Bee territory, Lethbridge. Was born and raised in Lethbridge. I'm a member of Kainai First Nations. I have 3 kids, 15, 13, and a 1-year-old. And that takes up the majority of my time. I just finished my undergrad in public health, and currently I'm working for the Dene Nation in the NWT, kind of doing as a researcher, looking into emergency preparedness and how we can better prepare communities up north for unexpected events, including COVID. And who knows, like with the war going on, or like, gas prices is an emergency, or just the cost of living, especially, in remote communities. So yeah, that's what we're looking into. And yeah, I'm happy to be here today and listen to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Welcome, JR. Thank you for sharing. I'll leave a couple seconds here just to see if anyone else wants to jump in.
Hi, I'm Ireland. I'll jump in real quick. Hi, Aubrey. Nice to see you. So I actually met Aubrey through the Generation Power program through Indigenous Clean Energy. It's always good to see you again. I guess I'll do a quick intro. Like I said, am in the Generation Power program. I'm currently working at Crown Indigenous Relations Northern Affairs Canada for Clean Energy on the Northern Reach team. I was at Natural Resource Canada, so I'm just kind of grabbing as much experience as I can when it comes to policy and programming. And I am currently enrolled in environmental studies for my honors at a University of Windsor. So I'm hoping to sort of figure out where I want to be and where I can create change. I'm a Métis woman, and I'm hoping that I have a positive impact on policy within government, but I'm up to change. I have no idea what else to say, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ireland. Good to see you again, too. Thank you both for joining us. I will just take a second to note to our attendees is that after the Youth Connect, you will be sent an evaluation. And if you complete that evaluation, you'll be entered to win a $100 gift card to Native Love Notes. I don't know if you've ever checked out Native Love Notes, but all my stationery comes from them these days. And it gets a good laugh in the office. So I highly encourage you to fill out the evaluation and have a chance to win. And so you'll notice I'm talking a bit quiet because I'm in this echoey room because my bathroom's getting redone. It's a whole thing, but that's okay because we have a panel to talk for me. And so I'm going to open it into our first line of questioning here. And so the first one I have for our panelists here is, what are some initiatives that you're currently working on or goals that you highlighted at the conference, and where are you currently at with those? And so we'll start here with Shayla.
Thank you. So I have a few things that I've been working on since the conference. And the first thing is I actually have the vice president of Starbucks who's been in communication with me, and she's trying to connect me with people who can get my book on a Canada-wide distribution in Indigo. So that's a really exciting thing. It's a lot of work though, so I'm just like crossing my fingers, and I hope that I can get my book in every Indigo store in Canada. That would just be a dream come true. The second thing is I got accepted into the Audible Indigenous Writers Circle workshop part of it. So next Friday, I actually have my first writing workshop with Richard Van Camp, which is the author of The Lesser Blessed, and also 25 other amazing books that he's pretty prolific with his writing and one of my favorite authors. So I'm really excited to be, in a small workshop with him where I can just talk to him directly and ask him questions and have him mentor me. So that is one really exciting thing that I have going for me. And also just finishing up the final touches of my manuscript. I'm really hoping to take advantage of my time with Richard Van Camp and all the other authors that are going to be working in those workshops, and really, lean into their gifts and use it to help, really put the final touches on this book. So yeah, I'm hoping to have 2 books out by the end of this year. So that's everything that I have been working on.
Wow, Shayla, that is amazing. Congratulations on all of that. I cannot wait to see it in these Saskatoon Indigos. That'll be so nice to see. You're honestly doing so great, and providing voices out there. It's so amazing. Honestly, it just after you spoke at the panel and how everyone, could kind of just see how passionate you were about the work that you're doing and how you still portray that here is so amazing. So congrats. I can't wait to see that all come to fruition. Yes. And with that, let's go over to Mackenzie. What do you have going on?
Hi. Oh, it's been a busy time since the Cando Conference, but it's been really good time too. I've been really lucky and really blessed. I was working on a huge mural for the Foothills Hospital in Calgary. So that's going to have its grand reveal in a couple of months here. But it got completed and then they have to adhere it to the wall. So usually like when I do my mural paintings, it's completely on the wall, but because of a hospital, we couldn't have open fumes. So we had to create a 40-foot mural on 24 6x4 panels. We completed that, and I was able to work with 3 other incredible Indigenous artists, all to do this beautiful mural on, health and indigeneity. And I'm really excited for that to go up, because I think that art has the ability of creating really amazing spaces and feels within spaces, and especially in a hospital where a lot of people are experiencing, grief and loss, for them to have this beautiful, gorgeous, like Indigenous mural just makes me thrilled. And so every year what I do is I choose a focus, because I'm a person that likes to wear many hats, similar to my other wonderful colleagues here today. And I find that if I don't choose a focus each year, I burn the candle at both ends. And so my focus this year was on more art. And so for the rest of the summer, I have 3 other murals that I'm going to be working on. So one in Inglewood in Calgary here with Parks Canada, raising awareness of white bark pine trees and their decline in population. I'm going to be doing one in Jasper for the Jasper Historical Museum, and then one in Stony Plain for some kiddos so that they can have a beautiful place to go and see Indigenous culture through arts within their own school. So I'm excited to be working on those initiatives. We just finished a big couple of days because we sponsored during Indigenous Tourism Alberta, we sponsored the Stampede Powwow. So there was the first ever powwow that happened at the Stampede this year. And we were really excited to be a part of it. There was over 500 dancers and some really amazing people who ended up coming and attending. Ashley Collingbow was there, Fawn Wood, Tia Wood. So it was exciting to be in the space with some really amazing other young people as well, doing some wonderful things in the province. So that was super fun. And then I mean on a work side of things, right now we're taking on a project looking at the labor market. And I know that might sound boring, but it's really exciting because we want to see about how can we have more Indigenous people working in the tourism labor force. And so, we're conducting the first ever Alberta and Indigenous wide labor market study that's ever been conducted across Canada. And from that, I think there's going to be lots of recommendations for youth programs, for artisan mentorship, to see more Indigenous people within the tourism labor force. So that's exciting as well. Yeah, and then really July and August for me look like rest because September gets busy. And so I like to take the time that I need to rest and relax so that I can be energetic and ready to go when the fall comes, because there's some exciting things like workshops and speaker gigs and some performances that I'll be doing, and of course my mural work as well. So that's kind of a little bit of a snapshot of what the summer has looked like for Mackenzie since being at the Cando Conference. It's looked like landing and grounding before I take off again.
Wow, you definitely are keeping busy, Mackenzie. I'm not surprised at all. But no, that's so cool. Once you get your murals up, you're gonna have to send us a photo for sure. I need to see those. A fun fact about Mackenzie is, after she kind of met all of us, she gave us these beautiful cards, and I read it and I was like, this is so nice. And then I turned around the back and the artwork was hers. And I was like, wow, I've never gotten a card that was, made by the person who was giving it. It was so cool. So congratulations on all that you're doing, Mackenzie. I can't wait to see photos. And with that, we'll move over to Josh. Josh, what initiatives or goals are you working on since the conference?
Yeah, perfect. So since the conference, it's kind of been a busy season for us. Of course, working in oil and gas and kind of the industry in Saskatchewan and Alberta, a lot of the construction happens throughout the summer months. So since the conference, I've been happy to employ 20 to 30 Indigenous kind of monitors in the environmental field. And from that, I really pride myself because that isn't just kind of supporting them, because I see it come from a community perspective. I've actually got to put out some of my family members as well. And I know when we get paid or when they get that salary or a paycheck, it doesn't just go to them. It supports the whole community and the economy of their community and First Nation, because the dollars that are being spent there. So that's one initiative that I've really been working on. Another is some policy and legislation within Saskatchewan here, with a large irrigation project that's kind of been happening from Saskatoon to Regina. So in Treaty 6 and Treaty 4 territory, the government of Saskatchewan and the Saskatchewan Water Authority is trying to kind of create an irrigation project and haven't really done their due diligence on stakeholder engagement. So one of my initiatives and one of my jobs this past kind of 6 months has been to get Indigenous people at the table and not so much delay or oppose the project, but just ensure that Indigenous stewardship and Indigenous communities are at the table and being engaged. So through that, they're actually taking a year break off this project to complete some stakeholder engagement and to kind of redo their report to get Indigenous communities and Indigenous businesses at the table. So possibly we could become larger stakeholders in this project and possibly some investment. So it could be Indigenous owned. So.
Wow, Josh, you're doing honestly so much. I remember at the conference, I was chatting with some people and they were like, talking about how cool it was, that at such a young age, you're honestly creating change in these big industries to make sure that our voices are heard. And so that's really incredible and good to hear. And, seeing that you're, calling out what you're seeing and making sure that there's actual meaningful change behind that. And you're holding people accountable. So amazing job. Great to hear from what you're doing. And with that, we'll move over to Nathan. Nathan, what have you been up to?
Yeah, thank you to everyone for sharing that. You always make me so inspired just hearing your stories and the initiatives you have going on. It was really a true blessing meeting you all, because it helped light the fire inside me and just confirm that I am on the right path and that there's others out there with a similar mindset, I guess. And then similar to my other fellow panelists, I do wear a few other hats in addition to being a full-time student and employed by my institution. So in addition to my roles with the University of Lethbridge, I'm also very passionate about advocating for Indigenous youth through initiatives focused on youth empowerment and really removing barriers to success for future generations and my current peers of Indigenous youth across the country, just by creating and holding space within the Western world and its institutions. And this is just because I remember myself being a child and really thinking that I wasn't good enough to do certain things, because of a lack of representation, and also just because I wasn't really aware of my history and my culture, all the beautiful components that make up my culture. But since returning, since I decided to go back to school in 2019, I really gained a new passion for reclaiming my culture and, really taking back my identity, which I'll explain more in a bit later on. But, I'm really fortunate to have the chance to advocate for Indigenous youth, on a local level, provincial level, and national level through my work and my involvement with the various organizations. So that would be the Indigenous Student Representative with my institution, the university, a member of the Student and Elder Advisory Committee with Community Futures Treaty 7. They're based out of Calgary. And then as the National Student Director with Cando, as I mentioned earlier. But, I'm just, with my work as Community Futures, I'm really fortunate and blessed to have the chance to listen and sit with elders from the various Treaty 7 nations and just, really work on reclaiming our culture through language, through initiatives focused on language. Sitting and listening to the elders, they really, don't want to lose that part of our identity, because as a Blackfoot person, there's not very many, at least for my community in my generation, not very many, members that speak Blackfoot fluently or even understand it. So I'm really passionate about my work that I do with Community Futures Treaty 7, as well as the other organizations. But, one thing I really am focused on, and that I'm passionate about, is really reclaiming my history and my culture and my identity. But in addition to the advocacy and volunteer roles that I hold, I'm also currently interning with Myers Norris Penny in their Calgary office, in the Indigenous Services Consulting Department, where I get to have the chance to work alongside Indigenous nations across the country and really ensure that their inherent Aboriginal rights and treaty rights are, really being upheld by industry throughout the duty to consult process. And then another component of my role with Myers Norris Penny is I also have the chance to educate various clients throughout the country on my Indigenous history and the true history of Indigenous peoples and their relationship with Canada. And then not only like this training I do, it doesn't only focus on the negatives, like we really try to end it with a positive, like how you can be an ally, what you can do, those kinds of things. So I really like, it's something I'm very passionate about because, you know, I really feel it's important to share the knowledge once you gain it, because it's really a true gift. And especially this knowledge of my culture, it's something that I feel really completely changed my outlook on life and, you know, brought so much pride in who I am. And I just, any chance I get to share that with, you know, whether that be Indigenous or non-Indigenous, I just feel like it's really important. So yeah, that's really kind of what I've been have had going on since the Cando National Youth Panel. Yeah.
Awesome, Nathan. It's great to hear all that you have going on and seeing you and hearing about this too. And we saw each other at the Forward Summit as well. Nathan and I will be speaking together at the Cando Youth Summit. And so you'll see us there. We're at this point basically speaking buddies because we speak at a lot of events together lately. It's always awesome to see what you're up to. I talk to you, I think we keep in touch pretty regularly, and you always have something new on the go every new time I see you. So it's great to see that you're keeping busy and you're doing a deadly job as this national student director. So good job. And
Thanks, Aubrey.
Yeah, of course. So thank you all for answering, you know, that kind of first question. It's so cool to, you know, hear all that you have going on as a group. I had no doubt in my mind that we would come into this and you'd bring 9 new things to the table that you're working on. You are an ambitious bunch for sure. And I love seeing about it and hearing about it. And, you know, I've been definitely keeping, you know, tabs on what you're doing through like LinkedIn and whatnot. And honestly, every time I look at a new post, I'm like, wow, I cannot believe I got to, you know, see them speak in person at the national conference. And I'm so proud of you all. I just radiate so much appreciation for all of you. Also, just a note to our attendees, if you have any questions for these youth too, feel free to ask that in the chat. We have no problem going off script in this space. We are more than open to, you know, hearing what you have to ask, and you can ask it through the chat or turn on your mic and ask. We're very open to that as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So my first question's for Josh, and what kind of ball or what kind of national team are you on?
So I play for the fastball Canadian national team. So on the Pan American Games team and the World Baseball Softball Classic team. So proud to be the only Indigenous person. Kind of in the past couple of years, I've been the only one. So it's been really good, and it was a good break. So I'm excited to travel here and get things going.
Good for you. No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's really cool. So I guess this question isn't specific to any panel member, but just general. So yeah, so just to give context to the question. So yeah, so I'm in public health, and you know, the new model of health is, I don't know if you guys, social determinants of health. And you know, that's, you know, how our healthcare system is, you know, instead of doing the Band-Aid solution and having preventative measures. And also in one of the models that's really popular in public health is, well, I don't know the name of it, but socioeconomic is like, you know, the major one, and then it goes, you know, below, but that's where, you know, where if we want to make real change, yeah, it's addressing poverty and stuff like that. So my question to you as a panel is, and I know entrepreneurship is one of our topics, is, as Indigenous entrepreneurs, what are your thoughts of, you know, if you're on that entrepreneurial journey, or, trying to get into business. What are your thoughts on taking advice from, the scholars or people who haven't actually done business and say, oh, you should do business, this is good, or, like those, compared to taking advice from people who've actually been through the gutter, or, where the rubber hits the road? Because there's so many things, well, if we're doing business on reserve, we have to deal with the Indian Act, and, we can't get loans because of we don't have fee simple and stuff like that. So there's like, because I'm thinking of getting into business, but it's like, should I be listening to people who, it's all nice and dandy in theory, or should I be listening to the people who actually have done it and can give that kind of real advice? But anyways, yeah, your thoughts on that. Sorry, it's not directed towards anybody. Whoever.
No, I think Mackenzie has her hand up, so take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question, JR. I think, so my mom is a business owner, and we have our business called Warrior Women. We're drummers, singers, storytellers, artists, and then I have my own artist business as well. And I think, I think that it's, it's always good to listen to advice from a ton of different people, but I do heavily believe in the importance of mentorship from people who have been through it, because it's not an easy journey. And especially as an Indigenous entrepreneur, there are roadblocks that you will face. But there are also people and supports that are around you that can help you through those things, right? And so, like, for myself, like I've learned more from people who have done it and who have been through the process than I have from, people who think on this kind of like ideas level. And of course, all of those relationships are important. I would say, like, being a business owner also means creating relationships with people who know things, with people who can support you, with people who, work on those higher levels. All of those relationships are just as important as the next. But I think too that you have the capacity and you have those gifts to make it as an entrepreneur within yourself. I think Indigenous people are inherently entrepreneurial. We're inherently creative. We're inherently supportive of one another to get through all of those things as well. And so those questions that you might have, you probably have the answers within yourself as well. And so I'll leave that at that, because I know that Shayla and Nathan have amazing things to say as well.
Awesome. Yeah, Shayla, I saw your hand next, so take it away.
Thank you so much. And, thank you, JR, for the question. I think that is a very important question. I'm glad that you asked it, and I hope my answer can help you out a little bit. And just piggybacking off of what Mackenzie said about how oftentimes the answer is within yourself. Just going to share a little bit of like my experience of what my partner and I have been doing lately with our documentary called Decolonizing Wellness. A big chunk of our documentary, we've been reaching out to professors and, like nutritionists, people with like master degrees. And we've been looking heavily into all these research papers to help us with this documentary. And I think that is just as important as reaching out to, say, like knowledge keepers and people who have also like walked like a path and have a lot of life experience to add to it. And recently we were thinking, we're just finalizing the documentary, and we were thinking of what we should do for one of our final, episodes. And I was kind of like scratching my head a little bit, because I'm tired of looking at research papers. I'm tired of, because it's a lot. Like, academic papers are a little bit hard to read, especially when you're doing it repetitively. And I started thinking, like, there's a lot of people in my community who are walking the red road and have had a lot of experience. And I was thinking, you know, you don't need to have a PhD in something and like a degree. You don't need to like write all of these research papers to know something. I think that's a very colonized way of thinking. So I started reaching out to people in my community that have been walking the red road and listening to their stories. And, you know, when they sit down and they share their life experiences, it's almost like I can trust it a little bit more, because there's nothing more powerful than, you know, saying, you know, I know this to be true because I lived through it. And I think it is just as important, if not more, to, you know, go based off of life experience than for people who have like studied for years. They're both very, very important, but, you know, like Mackenzie said, sometimes the answer is within yourself too. And that's just my little I want to share that with you, and I hope that that helps you somehow with your question. And thank you for the question too.
Thank you, Shayla. That is such amazing words. That's exactly what my boss tells me in my consulting firm all the time. So that's deadly that you say the same thing to our youth. Nathan, I did see your hand up, but I'm just going to quickly jump over to Josh because I believe you have to head out early. So Josh, we'll go to you to answer this. And then if you have any closing remarks before you have to head out.
Yeah, thank you. I do have to head out here quickly, but just one thing I kind of wanted to piggyback on too, and of course it's kind of great education here and learning from everybody else. I did obtain a degree in business management from University of San Francisco and Kenyatta College in California. But I can honestly say I've learned more kind of experiencing and just keeping my mouth shut kind of throughout dealing with governments and communities, and kind of learning from other people's experiences. I was able to work with a PhD and master's, kind of sociology from an economic standpoint during a lot of my years in the industry, and just kind of learning from his experiences. One thing that I learned myself was just to take everything kind of with a grain of salt and just kind of pick the things that I needed, because deep down I knew what I wanted to do with the business that I have and kind of side hustles. And there is a lot of education that can be learned kind of through Western, I guess, systems, but a lot of the stuff that I've learned as an Indigenous person was through other people's experiences. I knew what I needed to learn and the questions that I had kind of within myself and deep down. And sometimes it is smart to kind of turn your brain off a little bit when you've taken what you need from people, when you can pick and choose, because a lot of the times you're going to hear things that you don't want to hear, but a lot of the other times you're going to pick up those great pieces that you need. So thank you. Hopefully that helps. I do have to step out here. I got to get dressed in some business attire, and I got to go downtown here and work in the Western world. So thank you guys for having me. It's great reconnecting with everybody, and it's great making these new relationships. So thank you guys for having me. And I always enjoy these. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Awesome. And with that, we'll move over to Nathan. I saw you had your hand up, Nathan. I'm so sorry, but yes,
No,
take it away.
no, that's completely fine. I put it up and then I put it down because basically everyone has already kind of covered what I was going to add, but I'll just kind of reiterate what they said is, yes, like, you know, more knowledge is always better than less. So like if you can get differing viewpoints from different people, then that's always good. But and then what Josh said, you know, take what works for you, because what works for one person won't work for the other. And you know, it goes down to like best practices versus wise practices, which I'm sure you're aware of. But like, you know, what may work for the East Coast nations will not work for the West Coast nations just because it worked for them. Like you have to think about a lot of other components. Basically what I mean is there's not really one set way of doing things, kind of like how they teach it in academics in school, is they have really like one path or one answer to everything, and that's really not the case. And there's always you know, an ongoing not battle, but an ongoing butting of heads, I guess, between practitioners and academics, because, you know, it doesn't really align, because what works in the real world is not necessarily what you learn in the classroom. And I'm sure you have that experience that You know, similar to what Josh and the others have said, that, you know, I have learned so much more throughout my actual lived experience and actually going into the workforce, because, you know, what you learn in the classroom, I'm sure you don't retain all that knowledge, first off. And then secondly, I learn by doing. So that's kind of my 2 bits, I guess, on that topic, is really kind of what everyone else has said, that, you know, there isn't really a wrong answer. You know, academics have their value, and same with practitioners. So in my experience, I just take both and just kind of take what I need from both. But yeah, that's all I really had to add. But thanks for your question. It was a really good one.
Amazing. Thank you, JR, for asking that question. And thank you to all of our panelists for, your awesome answers. I always even learn stuff from you every time I'm in these spaces with you, and I'm very thankful for that. Even if you see in these spaces, like when you think about who to talk to, who can be your mentors, a lot of the time, like if you look at this, like the Cando Youth Connect, like don't underestimate our youth. They have a lot to offer, a lot to learn. They see a lot, their lived experiences are enough. And so that's really great to see that, you guys can answer these questions with so much, brilliance that you bring to these tables that often is overlooked. And I'm so glad that you share your voice and you amplify it, and you give others the power to raise their voice as well. I also just want to make a note to the youth, feel free to keep asking questions. I know we only have 13 minutes left, but 12 now. I don't know, the clock keeps changing on me. But as well, our team is like, our panel here is, on social media. Like Shayla said, she has a book. Nathan's speaking at events. Mackenzie speaking at events. If you want to keep in touch, like don't be scared to do that. In Cando, we're all a family, and it's best if we stick together and make these connections all the time. And so my question, this will be my last question for you all. And so, feel free to, weave in different aspects of it or kind of make it your own. But with everything going on, you're bound to face barriers in what you do and see things that, sometimes might discourage you. And so, how do you keep moving forward in, the face of adversity? And what advice would you have to youth who perhaps could be going through the same things? And so with this, we'll start over with Shayla.
Yes, thank you so much. So when it comes to barriers and stuff that I faced, like just on my journey, there's a lot to list. Being a teen mom, experiencing domestic violence at a young age, and like spending a night in like a women's shelter, those effects of intergenerational trauma and everything, those have been one of the biggest barriers in my life. But through healing, they're not necessarily barriers for me anymore. It's more like, like a catalyst for strength now. It's the perspective has changed on that. But when it comes to publishing my book and then, finishing up this book that I'm doing right now, this novel and everything, I think my biggest barrier is imposter syndrome. And I'm going to share something with you guys today. Earlier I mentioned that I'm in the Audible Indigenous Writers Circle. So I only got accepted into a portion of it. I worked so hard on my application, and I sent in my manuscript for my novel, and I was really, really hoping to get paired with Richard Van Camp. And I got the email that I've been like, I got to the final round of like cuts. And then from there, I was cut from having a one-on-one mentor with, say, like an Indigenous author like Richard Van Camp, which is what I really, really wanted, was that one-on-one time. But I got accepted into the workshop portion of it, which not a lot of people got accepted in. So I think that experience there, where I have like a pro and a con, like it's like, it was finding like the positive in it. It's like, okay, well, you know what, at least I got accepted into the workshops. But I would be lying if I said that I didn't feel major imposter syndrome when I wasn't selected to have a one-on-one mentor. So, imposter syndrome, feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like I don't have a seat at the table. That's something that I've always dealt with in my life. And I want to stay humble and say that I still deal with it today. And, I'm still trying to figure out the tools of how to overcome imposter syndrome. But when I look back at my past for how I've overcome everything in my life, it's going head on into the things that scare me. Because time and time again, after I go through things that scare me and I face them head on, I always come out stronger and things always work out better than I wanted them to work out in the first place. So that is one thing. And, you know, when it comes to like having some encouraging words for the youth today, as cliche as it sounds, don't give up. And, you know, in the wise words of Billy Ray Belcourt, if one door closes, another one opens. There's doors everywhere, doors that swing wide open, doors without locks. And, you know, there's opportunities everywhere. You just have to change your mindset to think abundantly instead of thinking limited. And with that, thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Shayla, and thank you for your vulnerability as always. It's so nice to hear, you know, that you speak about both sides of it, you know, the hard things that happen and how you overcome them. And, you know, it's really beautiful to see how much you look at the bright side of everything that comes into your life. And I always admire that about you. So thank you for sharing. And yes, and we'll move over to Mackenzie.
Thank you for that, Shayla. I absolutely loved what you had to say. When I think about, you know, hardships, those kind of things, you know, it's one thing that all Indigenous people share is we collectively share intergenerational trauma. However, you know, we have these traumatic things that have happened in our life, systemic racism, we all face it. But something that I do really like to think about is prior to, you know, colonization, we also share intergenerational brilliance and intergenerational resilience, right? Like our ancestors lived on these lands and had technology and had systems and had farming practices and sustainable practices for years and years before colonialism ever happened. And so those things are inherently within us. Yes, Shayla, if you could leave. Those things are inherently within us. And sometimes we don't have to try so hard to learn resilience. We just have to try to remember it. You know, those teachings are within our own blood memory. And something else that I think about too is I'm a drummer and a singer. And one of the very first teachings that I learned was about the heartbeat of the drum. So, you know, when you hear that heartbeat, it goes weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. And that's very much like our own life, right? We'll have weak moments, but when we're in those weak moments, we have to remember that the strong is coming. But then on the flip side, when we're strong, we also have to remember that the weak moments will come. And so we gather our circle of support. We gather the toolkits that we need to take care of ourselves in those moments of strength so that we can carry ourselves through those weak moments. We have those tools within us as well. And we have a circle of support. Nobody gets through anything alone. And there are people out there who support you, including us within this room as well. And then I think the final thing too is that I remember telling my elder one day, I said, like Frida, I'm just tired. I said, I'm busy, I'm just tired. And she was like, well, what have you been praying for? And I said, well, I've been praying for strength. And she said, oh, well, you know, you only get stronger when you go through hardships, right? And I was like, oh, that's right. And she said, sometimes you can pray for rest instead as well. So, you know, remember that everything's a journey. Creator has a plan. If things don't pan out, it's just not the right time, but you're going to learn something through it. And so take everything, as Shayla had mentioned, take everything as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. And just know that whatever path you're on, it's the right path. And if you have some roadblocks, it just means that you might have had to take a step back and learn something new. So I think those are the things that I think about when things are really hard. And remember to take care of yourself. You are the most important person. You can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. You are really important. You are enough as well. Everybody, as Shayla had mentioned, you know, imposter syndrome, we all experience it, but you are enough.
Wow, Mackenzie, that's a beautiful teaching. I haven't, it makes so much sense. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? But that's so true. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I think a lot of us pray for that, and then we realize what we're going through, and yeah, it is making us stronger. But those hard times are hard, and it's important to rest. And thank you. I always learn so much from you. I love it. With that, we'll move. Last but definitely not least, we'll go over to my good friend Nathan.
Thank you for that, Shayla and Mackenzie. And then I just want to add something in before I kind of get into my answer, I guess. So when I first, so we're talking about like imposter syndrome and inspiring others. So basically when I first met Aubrey-Anne, it was, I believe, in November of 2021. She really, really inspired me just by, all the things that she had going on and doing it with such grace. And it just honestly inspired me to push myself even further, just to know like that there's other like-minded people out there. And that also is the same for my other panel members here today. Like, just so inspiring to get to share space with other inspiring youth, I guess. And yeah, I just wanted to add that in there because Aubrey-Anne's been saying such nice things about all of us, so I wanted to say something as well. But yeah, so the barriers that I have had to overcome is so to be completely honest, at the Cando Conference, when we first all met and sat on the National Youth Panel, it was, really the first time that I had shared a part of my story in that type of setting. And what I mean is, so one of the main barriers that I had faced throughout my 20s, so I'll add in also, I'm currently 30 right now. I just turned 30 in April. So throughout my 20s, a huge barrier that I faced is that I was heavily addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I was really, really very lost. Didn't really know why. I didn't really have any answers. I just knew that something wasn't right, I guess. But in 2019, I decided to ask for help in the form of a treatment program, an 8-week treatment program. That's it was called Poundmakers Lodge, based just outside of Edmonton. But it was in this treatment center or treatment program that I was actually reintroduced to certain components of my, my First Nations culture, Indigenous culture. And it was when I, really witnessed and started to really understand why I did feel so lost and out of place my whole life. And just really like, I always kind of had this feeling that I didn't belong, whatever setting it was, even if it was with my Indigenous friends or my cousins. I just didn't feel like Indian enough, or if I was in the classroom, I felt like didn't fit in, kind of a thing. And I just, going back to this treatment center really made me kind of understand certain things. And the reason that is because Poundmakers Lodge, it uses a combination of Indigenous based teachings and cultural components with Western components like addictions counseling and Alcoholics Anonymous. So it really aligned with my outlook on life, which is, to look at things through a two-eyed seeing lens, and really, because I did grow up around, Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people my whole life. So I really felt like that was a strength. And then, so that's why this treatment center just made so much sense to me, because it used strengths from both components or both cultures, sorry. But, it was in this treatment center that I actually attended my first sweat lodge ceremony. So I didn't really grow up like culturally or traditionally. Like, yes, I say that, and I always say that in every room I'm in. I feel like I have to add that, I didn't grow up culturally, like meaning like in ceremony and whatnot. I had been to them, but I wasn't very like heavily involved. But then thinking back on it in retrospect, I was raised with these values, Blackfoot values that have carried me have helped me succeed and achieve certain things in my life, like being humble, caring for others, like these types of values really. So it was just a little tidbit I wanted to add in there, that I actually feel like I have had these values my whole life, even though I feel like I wasn't raised culturally. But yeah, so I attended my first sweat lodge ceremony in this treatment center, and it really felt like I had found my true identity again. And it really lit a fire inside me to reclaim other parts of my culture as well. You know, and I think the reason that I felt lost and why I felt like almost ashamed of being First Nations was because, you know, I did grow up in an urban setting as one of the only Indigenous people, one of the only First Nations people. And, you know, I was never really taught the true history of my people, both the good and the bad. So at the time, I didn't really have anything to be proud of. And, you know, as a child, I really always felt like I had to fit in, which is, I already kind of mentioned this, but yeah, I felt like I had to fit in different settings, like putting on different masks. And I always felt like I was trying to be something I wasn't, I guess. But when I went to this treatment center, like I said, it lit a fire in me to reclaim certain components of my culture. And then that's same year is when I entered into the University of Lethbridge. And that's why I chose the Indigenous Governance and Business Management program, because you know, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the true history of my people, and I just wanted to know more, basically. So that was a big barrier that I had to overcome, and meaning the addiction to drugs and alcohol. And when I overcame that barrier, it really helped me, you know, find my true self. And I just feel like whole and so complete compared to how I was before. And, you know, but that being said, similar to Shayla, like, you know, I completely accept all of my failures, because I feel like if it were not for my failures, then I wouldn't be able to be able to achieve my successes, and I wouldn't be able to appreciate them, because I have so much appreciation now for how bad things could be if I do something that I shouldn't do or whatever have you. So I just have so much appreciation, I guess, for walking on that red road. And it is a tough life, meaning that it takes work, but it's so worth it. There's so many gifts of sobriety is what I call them, or what they're called, I guess, that just come, and in the form of, you know, meeting so many people here today, like on the panel, the audience. I would not have been here and met so many people if I had not overcame that barrier and decided to reclaim my culture. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what, yeah, the main barrier that really kind of defines me now. I feel like it was really a big turning point in my life. But with that, I'll just kind of say like a little piece of advice or something to the youth here in attendance, or who will be watching the recording, is, you know, it's never too late to reclaim your culture, or, you know, don't ever feel ashamed about not knowing certain things, or, you know, not being accepted into ceremony or in certain cultural events. Like, you know, don't ever be ashamed, because that is, you have no reason to be ashamed, because there's so many people out there who do not know certain things about their culture. And it doesn't mean you're less than, or it doesn't mean anything. It just means that's the way that things were meant to be in the past. And that's how they were set up, like through policy and colonial initiatives, assimilationist policies and whatnot. So yeah, just don't ever be ashamed, or it's never too late to reclaim your culture and your true identity. Yeah, but thank you so much for giving me a moment of your time and listening to me today.
Amazing. Thank you, Nathan. I'm always so appreciative of, you know, hearing about your journey and, you know, where you've come and the lessons you learned since then, and your full embracement of your culture and identity and that journey as well. I can't wait to speak with you in August and hear about it more, and collaborate. You're a huge inspiration, and I look up to you as well. So thank you for being here. And with that, you know, Mackenzie, Josh, Shayla, Nathan, all four of you are just so deadly. I can't get over it. And I will always, you know, kind of keep in touch and everything like that. And to all of our youth here, you know, thank you for taking time out of your day to hear from these youth, and just know that, you know, we set up these spaces for you to, you know, create opportunities where we can hear from each other and learn from each other. And, you know, this could be you on these panels as well. You know, never be scared to reach out to Cando. We're all a family. We all have a story. We all are valuable and have something to share, and we welcome that in these spaces. And so thank you so much for joining us. I'm honored to have been here. Keep in mind to fill out your evaluation so you can win that Native Love Notes gift card for $100. Your stationery could be so deadly at home, or your pillows or your shirts. I love it there. I'm gonna go shopping to it after this. But thank you all for coming. I know we're a little bit over time, so I just want to be, respectful of what you have going on for the rest of the day. I wish you happiness and safety and love and health, and I will hopefully see you all and keep in touch again soon. Have a great rest of your day.